Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
I ran across these words from a friend of mine that I've known for years, world's champion team roper and former actor in some of the John Wayne movies of days gone by, Clay O'Brien Cooper. A couple of years ago, while competing at the NFR, there were some of us contestants that were asked to do a TV interview after one of the performances. The lady was conducting the interview, and she made a comment that we were like heroes. I actually felt ashamed. The lady in the interview had called us heroes, but the real heroes are the people all around us that live their lives giving to other people's needs, and no one ever hears of their heroic deeds. There are heroes everywhere, just to name a few: moms, dads, granddads, grandmas, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, close friends, policemen, paramedics, firemen, teachers, pastors, and soldiers. They are the real heroes. Clay O'Brien Cooper. How true. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America, followed by a Patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance on a Tuesday. Good morning, good morning. And a good morning, everybody. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell, and welcome to the program this morning, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and a great big tire sale going on right now, along with some of our great advertisers, including Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service, 734-6969. And right now, let's go to the phone line and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, Lorna Doone.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, Lorna, you do a great job, and so nice to hear from you this morning. Have a wonderful day, and thank you very much.
Thank you, too. You have a wonderful day, and God bless.
You too. Thank you. What a nice lady right there. Oh, my goodness sakes. Before I do anything, quickly, I've got to say welcome back to my buddy Little Wheels. How you doing there, my friend?
Good. How are you, sir?
Don't worry about me, but you're hanging in, hanging on, right?
I am. I just needed to take the time off yesterday, and I definitely needed the weekend to kind of settle myself and recuperate.
All right, well,
I'm glad I'm here this morning.
You just take care of yourself. Good to hear your voice. Thank you, my friend. Time for the weather, brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn. And the number to remember to call for all the equipment and tools that you need with Roger and the crew over there, 678-3122. They've been in business since 1979. The experience, the equipment, the tools, everything is right there, from paintbrushes all the way to forklifts. You name it, K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn, 678-3122. Here now is the weather.
Here's your weather forecast as we saddle up and ride again for this Tuesday. Today is going to be the nicest day that we have as we move through the work week. Sunny skies is what we're looking at, slightly breezy. High of 63 tonight, clear skies, low of 37 tomorrow. The winds are definitely going to be picking up, and we're looking at a high of 57 under mostly sunny skies. Tomorrow night, clear with a low of 31. Tomorrow, going to be a lot cooler. However, still, we're going to see some sunshine, high of 49 with an overnight low of 31 for Friday as we kick off the weekend. 20% chance of rain showers are in the forecast, only a high of 46. That's your weather for Zebeth Ranch.
I appreciate it, Gina. Thank you. Brought to you by K&R Rental. You know, I don't care what you're doing, whether you need a forklift to raise stuff all the way up to the top of the ceiling to get the job done, or you need lawnmowers, or you need power tools. They've got it all. All of the equipment you need right there at K&R Rental, 256 South, 600 west of Hayburn. Hello, Roger and the crew, 678-3122. Oh, my goodness sakes, we've got a busy day here. And I also want to remind you, too, that Burley Livestock Sale's coming up on Thursday, the Burley Livestock Sale Yard. 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley. Number to call for cattle consignments and sale information, 678-9411. The sale that works for you with Merv May, Kay Draghi, Lance Udy, absolutely, and I believe they're going to be starting at 10 o'clock on Thursday, Burley Livestock Sale Yard, 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley, 678-9411. Okay, a couple of notes I've got to take care of here this morning. First of all, one of the greatest guys to have as a friend because of his great artwork and his innovative ideas on things that I say. Paul Peterson sent me a really nice drawing. Happy birthday from your rowdy friends. I appreciate that, and I love the cartoon. My birthday was a week ago on October 2nd, and just absolutely so many nice people out there. I appreciate it. And a couple of other quick notes. We are still accepting boots for the Booting Harvey out of Texas, and the 3 drop-off points are Lane and Rupert, the Twist family over in Paul, and Randy on Overland with Tires West Les Schwab. All the Minnecasia Les Schwab tire centers. And this is going to be our big push this week to get all the boots in there because we've got a truck and trailer going down and horse tack. If you've got some saddle pads, bridles, reins, whatever, put it in a box right there at those 3 drop-off points, and we're going to be picking that up, getting it boxed up, and leaving for Texas very shortly. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Are you going hunting? Do you have everything ready? And you've got everything all piled into the back of the pick-em-up truck or the camper, and you did not clean those sleeping bags. Oh, no! You unfurl that, dude, and you've got last year's Cheetos and salsa, and it's a mess. You better make sure you get in there today to Darrow's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They can clean everything for your hunting, and don't forget, my friend, they can also waterproof your tents. Nothing worse than a leaky old tent. I've had plenty of those. And, of course, also waterproof your clothing, too, at Darrow's Cleaners. Kevin is really a magician at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Want to mention, too, we've got some notes here. Happy birthday to Melody Bond. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Melody Bond is having her birthday today, and I hope it's a very special day. Another note, last night I was supposed to be over in Rupert with the Hometown Heroes dinner that Jerry Voss puts on. I was late getting finished with what I had to do in this area, and I didn't make it. And I just want to salute Jerry Voss. You know, in every community, you're going to find doers, and Jerry Voss is a doer. Jerry is one of those kind of guys, and I'm so glad he's one of my friends, that when he gets involved in something, he really goes after it and does a great job. And I don't think that I can give him enough praise. And if I were to have a salute this morning, it would be to Jerry for all he does with the Hometown Heroes program and so many other events. Congratulations. He's really a great community-oriented individual. Denny's Restaurant. Let's not forget America's Diner. Ooh, boy, I got to tell you, on Thursdays we give away a Grand Slam breakfast to Denny's with our football trivia. But I want to remind you, you can get in there anytime, all the time, and enjoy delicious dining. I mean, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, anytime, all the time at 611 North Overland in Burley, or if you're in Twin Falls, 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. And, take a look at that menu. And the pictures are fantastic, but, the food is 10 times even better. Oh, it's delicious. Great people, excellent service at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. And a note, all the lunch bunchers, listen up, next Thursday, next week on the 19th. The 19th will be Lunch Bunch. You be sure and be there. Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. And, real quick, we've got to tell everybody about Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, open 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. Now, we're in kind of a little lull here. The temperature's up there around 60s and maybe into the 50s and everything. All of a sudden, there's going to be a hole in the bucket. And we're going to see these temperatures go ploop, right down. Well, you'd better be prepared for the cold weather by making sure your furnace has clean air filters, and they've got them all at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Number to call 678-0459, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. Yesterday, Columbus Day, may have been the last of the Columbus Day celebrations if the NRBs and the liberal goons, by the way, NRB stands for not real bright, the NRBs and the liberal goons have their way. And they're going to get their way if we don't fight back. The desecration and toppling of longtime American statues is totally wrong. I will stand up for the people that look to General Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and others in the South as part of their heritage. I will absolutely look up to the statues of our great George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln. And I will absolutely support Christopher Columbus. But they're getting completely out of hand. They absolutely, the left, they want to see everything taken down. The evil, and it is evil, the evil left is dictating to you and I what and whom we may honor or give tribute to. And none of us should accept that. None of us should kowtow to them. Because in the future, and don't laugh at this because it's really the truth, the evilness of the left, what will they start putting up in place of what they tear down? Will they be putting up statues of Hillary Clinton or George Soros or even Satan? And we're told to accept and honor? Never. Never. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning, Zeb. I was just thinking about what you said, and how would it be if these people that are trying to do away with all these statues and everything, how would they like it if someone went to their cemetery where their loved ones were buried and destroyed the markers? That's how I look at it. It's the same darn thing.
Well, there are those on the NRB left that want to do away with Arlington and all the crosses. There are those that want to take the crosses off of churches and have nothing on the church steeple because they claim it's offensive to their eyesight. I guess my question to you is, when do we fight back? When do we stop turning the other cheek and accepting mediocrity or lowness, and when do we fight back?
Well, I don't know quite how we fight back. If I did, I would join in the fight. But, just to go out there and march up and down with a sign and everything, That's not going to get...
No. I mean fight back. And I mean this when I say this. It's going to take people to get their noses bloodied. It's going to take people that are willing to put out their effort and stand there in front of these great statues or the crosses and say, no, you're not going to put this down to the ground. We are going to fight you, and you are going to lose. Keith, it's coming to that in America, whether you want to admit it or not.
I don't know whether we have any famous statues in Burley or anything like that, but if it came that close to home, you bet I'll be there, and so will you.
You had better believe it, because we've got to, at some point, Christianity, right and wrong, and fighting wrong has got to have a line in the sand, and you've got to say you're not going to cross it because we're not turning the other cheek ever again.
Well, I don't know what to think, but it's just terrible to think that these people don't have any more respect for other people's property. When I say other people, I mean these statues belong to the people of America, and they're just toppling all over us.
You know, I was listening to the news last night, and Keith, I'm going to continue this on. I got to do a commercial break, but I'm going to be talking about Joe Piscopo in just a few moments, a former comedian, and boy, he said something last night that really got my attention. God bless you, Keith and Nancy. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right, thank you. Got to pay some bills, and then we'll take more calls. And I want to talk about Joe Piscopo in just a moment. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. The number to call, 678-1191. Oh, the kids are back in school, and that means falling off the monkey bars or maybe swinging out on the merry-go-round and swinging into the next county or whatever. We used to do that. And all kinds of sporting activities going on. Well, that means there's going to be injuries, sprains and strains, broken bones, everything you got to recoup from. Well, these people are the best at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, and the number to call so they can help you get back to being you, 678-1191. That number again, 678-1191. I absolutely believe in these great physical therapists, and I believe in Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. You get a hold of them today, 678-1191. One other spot here before I get back into what I was going to say a moment ago. I want to just have all the seniors kind of perk their attention up a little bit. And if you're living home alone and, you know, it's lonesome. Nobody wants to be alone. And it's kind of dangerous, too, with all the safety hazards and then nobody in the house to help you or whatever. And then maybe saying, oh, well, I'm not going to eat tonight because I just don't feel like making anything. Or maybe saying, oh, I missed my medication yesterday. I'll take it tomorrow. No, you better take care of yourself. And I know a place that you should contact. Palmer Place, a place for senior living, and the number to call and get more information, 677-8212. They're located at 1301 Bennett Street in Burley. That number again for Palmer Place, 677-8212. Last night, I happened to see Joe Piscopo, and Joe's an interesting guy. He was a former comedian, a long time ago, on Saturday Night Live, and bodybuilder, athlete. I mean, this guy, I like the way he thinks. And he is of Italian descent, and he's had enough. And he said yesterday that, and he agrees with what I'm saying here this morning, you've got to rise up and protect items and history, morals, and family values. And at some point, when the evil in our society keeps tearing things apart, throwing things down, burning and desecrating, it's time to use physical action and stop the evil. And when it came to yesterday, the Antifa and other groups were cursing and saying they were going to tear down the statue in New York of Christopher Columbus. I heard Mr. Piscopo say in no minced words, no, they won't. And if they try, they won't. And there absolutely has to be a line in the sand. Now, for all of you do-gooders out there like, oh, well, we're just going to sing praise and sit around the fire and make chocolate s'mores and everybody's going to get along and huggy and kissy. Ain't going to happen, folks. It ain't going to happen in this world. And we've got to start literally fighting back. I know a lot of you don't like to hear that. But look at where we've gone. Later on this morning at, let me see what time he's going to be on, 9:30, we're going to have Dr. Alvin Schmidt from Illinois back on my program. And I have the highest regard for Dr. Schmidt. And we're going to be talking about evil in our society and how we really are at fault for letting it permeate and grow like a cancer. That's coming up at 9:30 this morning. Right now, your calls and thoughts are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I've got a kind of an update this morning on the NFL and also one of the great Hall of Fame players and coaches, Mike Ditka. And I like old Iron Mike, I'll tell you what. And we're going to talk about him in just a few moments. Calls welcome. Come on, give me a jingle. Right now, I also want to remind you about Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox Home Comfort Systems. Oh, no matter what the weather is outside, blowing and snow and the wind howling, you'll be comfy inside with a Lennox Home Comfort System, and you could possibly get up to a $1,600 rebate on a new system. All you have to do is call Ramsey Heating and Electric at 678-0459 today. Absolutely, Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox. Don't forget that. Oh, and real quick, before I take your next call, nobody really probably says, gee, when I grow up, I want to clean septic tanks. But you know what? We are so blessed because somebody is doing that. And that somebody, the best, is Dino Septic Service. Absolutely. And they've got Rupert, Burley, Twin Falls all covered. Let me tell you what. And they've got a big old truck that goes around called Smells Cargo on the way. I'm telling you, this is a business that you and I don't want to do, but they are really, really good at their craft of pumping septic tanks and water and sewer lines installed and sewer and sink drain lines cleaned, septic inspections. I'm telling you, give them a call at 436-6526 or in Burley, 678-1638, Twin Falls, 735-8281. And, of course, that's Dino Septic Service. Boy, we're glad they're in business. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Some of the old standbys in the NFL, and I'm talking about players that really played for the love of the game instead of all the big bucks and the huge contracts of over millions and millions of dollars. And they were really the trendsetters for today's prima donna athletes. The Mike Ditkas, the Jerry Kramers, the Bart Starrs, and all of these, Roger Staubachs, and etc. They played for the love of the game. And now with these huge multi-million-dollar contracts and the overworked, underpaid, or I should say the underworked, overpaid athletes that are playing today, with a attitude of gimme, 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 and I demand, I demand, I demand. This has got to stop. Well, anyway, when it comes to kneeling in the NFL for our national anthem, I listened to the remarks yesterday of Mike Ditka. I do not have the exact quote right in front of me, but I can tell you that when it came to a lot of these athletes saying, oh, we're so oppressed, he said, oppressed? Millionaire athletes oppressed? You've got to be kidding me. And he, Mike Ditka, agreed quite a bit with what I've said the last couple of days. Everybody's got a story. Everybody had to overcome something in their life to be successful or to achieve something. And for these athletes that are hauling down literally multi-millions a year, driving Porsches and living in the fanciest homes, and they're yelling and screaming about oppression, give me a break. And the last part of what Mike Ditka said is absolutely the truth. When asked about what he would do as a head coach, he would just tell the players one word: adios. I love it. Calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Please give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. Oh, my goodness sakes. Let's see what else is in the news this morning. Wild Bill. Wild Bill Clinton is absent, and you can't, in some cases, can't blame him. But, there was a question yesterday that was brought up about, where's Bill? Bill Clinton. Why, we don't see him and Hillary together at all. And he was asked about Hillary's book called What Happened. And I understand from some of the things I've read that Bill was not real happy about her writing that book about what happened. He said, and I'm not quoting, I'm just giving kind of a paraphrase, he said that it was not right to keep whining and stay with a losing atmosphere. Maybe that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen the odd couple together, Bill and Hillary. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Please give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. I want to remind everybody, too, about Berry Equipment and Rental. Sales, service, and parts. 3 locations, South Lincoln and Jerome, Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, and, of course, with Juan and the crew. Hello, Juan! 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. And they've got all the equipment rentals, all the retail equipment sales, all the Bobcat excavators, new and used. You better get in there. And if you don't know how to run these things, not to worry. They got a great big sandbox out behind, and they'll turn you loose. They'll teach you how to run it correctly, and you'll be all the better for it. Berry Equipment and Rental, South Lincoln and Jerome, Addison Avenue West in Twin, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. They do have all the equipment to get the job done right. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I have been in California many times, and I know a lot about the geography and the different areas of California, having rodeoed down there for years and years and years. And the terrible, devastating fires that are going on right now in Sonoma area and Paso Robles, and just absolutely the greatest of wine country. And there's so much beauty and there's so much intrigue in that area. I always look forward to going down there and driving real slow when I did drive down in that country, and just enjoying and taking in all the beauty. And right now it's absolutely horrific with all the fires. The fires are just absolutely devastating. I understand now I heard during the 8 o'clock news with CBS, 11 people are dead and over 100 are missing. And homes and wineries gone, and many families probably never will recover because of these devastating fires. And my heart goes out to them, because I know a lot of these people down there that own these wineries, etc. And all I can say is, God be with you, and please be safe. Please be safe. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. I can't imagine what happened to the phones this morning. Wheels is gone one day, and all of a sudden, everybody just quits calling. Come on, give me a jingle. I want to remind everybody again, when you need a plumber, you go through the yellow pages. You don't have to go through the yellow pages. I know a person that you need to call because he is the best. And why do I say that? Because he's done work for me, and I am really impressed. Harris Plumbing NG with Nathan Harris and his staff, 630 Dion Street in Burley. Number to call, 431-8633. Write that number down, 431-8633. My experiences, absolutely, I'm A1 satisfied. His dedication dedication to perfection and getting the job done right is second to none. Call him today. Harris Plumbing NG. Number to call again, 431-8633. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Good morning. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good day. We got another one.
Uh-oh.
My mother used to say when she woke up in the morning, if we were still America and she knew who she was, it was going to be a pretty good day, and that's kind of how I feel.
You know, you are, and you're going to be subbing on Dr. History's segment later on this morning, but I want to ask you something that's a little bit removed from that segment show later on. Gary, our history right now is being torn down and thrown away as if it can be hidden. They've already rewritten a lot of the history books in school for our kids, whether it's elementary, high school, and or college. But why? Why are we trying to hide what took place in this country? We can learn from our past. We shouldn't shelter it.
Well, we have a whole lot of people that are in charge these days that think they have to reinvent the wheel. And plus, they threw the baby out with the bathwater, but they forgot to look which way the water was running, so they don't know where to find it again.
I'm really concerned. I don't know what your take is on the statues that have been thrown down, be it of General Robert E. Lee or Stonewall Jackson or Christopher Columbus or whomever. But, you know, why? Why are they trying to get rid of something that is our history? And what do they think they're going to achieve by this? That's the thing I don't understand.
Well, they don't have a lot of foresight, and they don't really know a lot about hindsight, and they're just alarmists and reactionaries, and, you know, we're in a me society these days, so that's pretty much where it is, to get attention and spout off their mouths and then run and hide and see what happens.
Do you agree with me, and I'm open for public criticism on this, but do you agree with me that we are very close to having confrontations and public conflagrations with right and wrong because we've got to stand up sooner or later?
Oh, I agree with you totally. And I'm very concerned by it because the peace that I once knew and security I once knew in this country, as a 75-year-old man, I'm starting to not feel so secure as I was living here in America. And it's quite alarming because I grew up absolutely hearing from the day I was born until all my elders passed away about how they got away from the Bolsheviks in Russia and came to America. And so I see what's happening and what's going on, but so many other people don't, and even members in my own family don't want to hear it. And I'm just shocked by that.
Okay, let me pursue that just a second further. Why are they turning a deaf ear and a blind eye to the situation as if, like an ostrich, they can put their head in the sand and eventually maybe it'll go away? Why?
Well, first off, I am a firm believer that this country was founded on a belief in God and a group of founders and people that believed in living their lives, such as the Ten Commandments. After, I would say, about 1960, parents didn't make their children go to church anymore and then decide what they wanted to do when they get out. They were allowed to do what they wanted and feel how they feel and feel how they wanted to. And so now, what have they got to fall back on? The fundamentals of the country. You can't just pick out one commandment and say that's going to work and this one isn't going to work and have it your way. So it's at everybody's whim, and all of our churches fell into that, and they've also started to, I see the Catholic Church is starting to fight back a little bit, but you go to any one of these churches, you don't see preachers standing up there preaching what they used to be talking about in a morality and a way to live, and what's right and what's wrong politically, but they used to make a political statement.
You know, Gary, is it because of fear? Is it because they're perhaps uneducated? Is it a combination of both? Is it because they're not trying to be politically incorrect? I mean, what's going on here?
We have 50 years now, in several generations, people that are now grandparents that grew up, did not grow up with what I'm talking about. In the 60s, they had the freedom and went off and got flowers and went to San Francisco, and it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Well, free-for-all, well, yeah, that was probably fun for a while, but you can't run a country on it.
Absolutely. I made the statement earlier that we've got to draw a line in the sand right now. And I don't care if it's a statue of Christopher Columbus. I don't care if it's the Lincoln Memorial or George Washington, whatever. And there are even talks about some of these crazies have been saying that they want to see Mount Rushmore closed down or destroyed. My response is maybe it's time to form citizen coalition groups and meet these people head on, because they are evil, and evil is trying to take over this country.
Well, that's what it's going to have to take, is head on. But so far, nobody's wanting to get out and march in the streets. They tried it with a little bit with the Tea Party, and that kind of went bust. But till things get really, really bad, and in your own back doorstep, people aren't going to come out. I still got neighbors here who don't know who I am, but when I grew up, we knew who everybody was.
Yeah.
And so, we've become so isolated in our own little world that I don't know what it's going to take to get people turned around. And the only thing that I can see that absolutely everyone must sit down and write a letter, as bad a handwriting as they got, whatever it is, and send it to their congressmen and senators. That's the only thing that they're going to listen to.
Yeah. And, there becomes more validity every day in what Nikita Khrushchev, the former premier of Soviet Union, said, that we will take you over without firing a shot.
He said, let me have your grandchildren, and it'll be taken over.
Yeah.
And he's got them.
Yep. Gary, I'll look forward to the Dr. History segment. God bless you, man. Thanks for your call.
I have one more. I want to tell you why I called.
Okay.
I'm a member of the Modern Woodmen of America, and last night their meeting, they gave a wonderful honor to Woodman of the Year to Alita Stringham.
Oh, my. Yes.
And she happens to be the only person in the entire southern area that plays the trumpet at funerals.
Yes.
And around the country, and so they honored her by being able to play taps, whether it was raining, snowing, or whatever. She shows up and has done it for, 30, 40 years, but they honored her last night, which was quite nice.
I have had the opportunity to hear her play, and I know her. She came to Lunch Bunch on one occasion and really gave a great dissertation about taps, etc. I think they made a very wise choice. Congratulations to Alita. And Gary, thank you for bringing that up this morning.
Okay, see ya.
God bless. That lady over in Oakland, can she play that trumpet? Absolutely outstanding. And again, kudos to Jerry Voss and the Hometown Heroes program. I want to remind you, too, quickly about Lennox Home Comfort Systems again, along with Ramsey Heating and Electric. You better call and find out more information. Call them at 678-0459 and find out how they can keep you nice and comfy this winter, absolutely, with Lennox Home Comfort Systems through Ramsey Heating and Electric. 678-0459, and you could possibly get up to a $1,600 rebate. Check it out today at Ramsey Heating and Electric on 2600 Overland in Burley. Let's do a weather forecast, shall we? And the weather is brought to you by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Just the other day, what day was that? I think it was Sunday. I was talking to somebody about hearing and hearing impairments, etc., and I really suggested they give a call to Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids right across from the Minidoka Hospital emergency room. The number to call, 312-0957 with Dr. Christine Pickup. This lady, I said this many times, I want you to really pay attention to this. She knows sound. She knows hearing. and she knows how to help you. And they have the only locally owned and independent hearing healthcare practice in southern Idaho. So please call today at 312-0957. Right now, old Wheels is going to play the weather.
Here's your weather forecast as we saddle up and ride again for this Tuesday. Today is going to be the nicest day that we have as we move through the work week. Sunny skies is what we're looking at, slightly breezy. High of 63 tonight, clear skies, low of 37 tomorrow. The winds are definitely going to be picking up, and we're looking at a high of 57 under mostly sunny skies. Tomorrow night, clear with a low of 31. Tomorrow, going to be a lot cooler. However, still, we're going to see some sunshine, high of 49 with an overnight low of 31 for Friday as we kick off the weekend. 20% chance of rain showers are in the forecast, only a high of 46. That's your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
And thank you, Gina. I appreciate it. And don't forget to call the number. If you're having some hearing problems, take that hearing screening. Absolutely, you're going to enjoy the experience, and they can help you. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, 312-0957. Okay, caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Hi.
Hi, I just happened to hear, right in on the middle of your previous caller's conversation with you, and he was saying that the churches are not telling us what we can do or should do and what we can't do and so forth. And I appreciate what he's saying because I think we have to do this. This is what the churches, that's one of the church's functions, is to guide us in the moral life. And I must say, God bless Father Julio at Little Flower Church. I have heard him more than once, many, many times, stand up and, explain the gospel to us and the readings to us and so forth. And then he'll say, you can do this, but you must not do this. This is not right.
You know, Linda,
and I so appreciate him for that.
Linda, let me ask you this, and you have been a dear friend of Deanne and mine for a long, long time. But I can honestly say that I don't know hardly any ministers or church leaders that really are willing to stand up there right now and talk about today's current events and then try to tie it in with biblical prophecy, because I think political correctness is scaring them. We had a pastor in this area that left to go to a church in California. His name was Dr. Alex Lissau. And I had him on my program many, many times, and he is in total agreement with me that the day is right around the corner when good and bad, and we're going to have to fight evil. And too many pastors, I think, today avoid the subject.
I do too. Zeb, we're already fighting evil.
Yeah. Yeah. Every single day.
There's so many things now that are not right.
Well,
and I know people will say, the Catholic Church has too many rules and too many laws. But you know what? God gave us a set of rules and laws to live by. And if you live within those rules and laws, you're free to do all the good things.
Well, I agree with that, Linda, but here's the problem today. People don't want, I'm not saying everybody en masse, but I'm saying most people don't want rules and regulatory means. They don't want the laws. They want the idea of, I can do anything I want, and I don't want to work, and you're going to feed me, etc. You know that attitude is permeating our society today.
That's right, yeah. See, that's just it. They don't want to be told what's right and what's wrong or what they can do, and they're not considering the other person or how we affect the other person's life by what we do.
And I had yesterday on the program Pastor Richard Ward from back in Chicago, Illinois, and quite frankly, he was very succinct and he was very blunt, and he said, we need to get back to God. And later on this morning at 9:30, I've got Dr. Alvin Schmidt, a man that has been on my program numerous times. He's a great philosopher and great religious minister, and he's going to be talking about evil at 9:30 this morning. And I've had people say, "Oh, who are you to say about evil?" Linda, somebody's got to talk about it.
Darn right. And our Father Julio does. He stands up there and tells it like it is. And we love him and appreciate him for it. And the kindest, most gentlest individual in the whole wide world. but he is very ready to stand up and tell us where it is.
Well, I thank you. Your call came in at just the right time this morning, and I appreciate it. Linda, God bless you, and I mean that. And have a great day.
Thank you. God bless you too, and Deanne.
Thank you. You know, I don't know why it is today. Honestly, there's right and wrong. And I'm not a perfect, good heavens, I've never said I was. I've got so many holes in my screen door, the flies go in and out, in and out, in and out. No, I've got plenty of problems of my own. And I've had plenty of past problems that I hope I've corrected, and I hope I'm a better person for it. I'm not saying I'm the perfect person. Never did, never will. You know, I get sick and tired of some of the insinuations by people. Well, you think you're so good. No, I don't. But we have to start realizing evil is taking over our society. Evil is taking over our schools. Evil is taking over, yes, our churches. Evil is taking over our government. Evil is taking over. Where are we going to draw the line now? Or are we going to keep backing up like Obama did? You know, you got to stand up and fight for something. And that old country song, if you can't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. It's true. It's really true. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. It's interesting, when we talk about this kind of a subject, evil or standing up, and, you know, there may have to be some bloody noses over fighting evil, I know who's going to call. But I want to hear new people voice their opinion. Don't be afraid. That's the problem in our society today. People are afraid. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I don't know where that voice came from, Wheels, but don't let him back. Anyway, I read a story that was in the USA Today the other day, and it just made me furious. Great big headline said, "Poll portrays an unhappy America." Subheadline said, "Most disagree with Trump." What? And so I read the first paragraph, and it said, quote, "Americans overwhelmingly disagree with President Trump on just about everything." Is that true? I don't think so. I think you and I, the people that are doers, the people that work, the people that care, the people that remain faithful to the laws in this country, they're not unhappy with Trump. They're not unhappy with what he's doing. And this statement about Americans overwhelmingly disagree with President Trump on just about everything, I find that to be absolutely fictional. I think it's an outright lie. And quite frankly, I denigrate and I damn the USA Today newspaper for being one of the most vile, one of the most left-wing tools of Satan that I've ever read. Now, somebody says, well, why do you read the thing? Well, that's the reason. I want to keep up and find out what these kooks, crackpots, and NRBs, not real brights, are writing and doing in this newspaper. But to say that Americans overwhelmingly disagree with President Trump on just about everything, that's a lie. Case in point, look what he's doing. He's following up with his promises to the coal industry. He is, the coal industry this morning, absolutely standing up and blowing the trumpets in favor of what Trump is doing, because he's going to reinvigorate the coal industry in this country, which we need for our power grid. It ain't going to be those little bitty funny looking windmills. It ain't going to be those little solar panels. And I salute what he's doing there. Don't forget our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, because doing the right thing matters. All the time, anytime. They've got all the passenger car tires and the pickup tires and the SUV tires, many of which are on sale for their big fall tire sale right now. You better get in for the fall and winter driving at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And don't forget, they've got the best in brake service. Highly trained brake technicians that really understand brakes. Front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. You know, you got to have a good battery in this colder weather that's coming. And don't forget, they've got 7 easy-to-get-into locations here in the Magic Valley. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, and, of course, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. The best. The best. Service reigns supreme at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. An old friend just walked in the door a few moments ago, and that happens to be Jack Euler, and he's going to be coming up this next half hour here in the studio. We're going to be talking about the sage grouse issue and the revocation of some of the stupid, idiotic laws that the Obama administration tried to put in effect, and that's coming up next half hour. And then at 9:30, Dr. Alvin Schmidt from Chicago, Illinois area, talking about evil. Then at 10:06 this morning, we're going to have filling in for Dr. History, Gary Shorsman, a very, very knowledgeable man about the history of our great southern Idaho. And then we're going to be talking about the power grid, coal power, etc., with Chris Horner at 10:30 this morning. So we got a lot of things cooking for the rest of the day. Want to thank everybody again. I absolutely can't thank you all for the kindness that you displayed to my wife and I over my birthday, and I thank you for the cards and the emails and everything, all the gifts. If I didn't thank everyone personally on the air, it's because I didn't want to forget anybody. So please understand that. Thank you so much. It was a big birthday. I'm not going to mention the number, but it's a big one. Anyway, we're going to take a little break right now and go to the news from CBS. Good to have old Wheels back over there. I miss my little bitty buddy, and he's back over at the main studio. We'll see you back here in about 7 minutes with more Zeb at the Ranch. Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back, Zeb at the Ranch, and I'm going to have one of my best friends on the air in just a little bit, but right now I've also got to tell you our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with the Great Big Fall Tires Sale, and also our friends at Western Way Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Way Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Way Services is landing ahead, always at your disposal. Western Way Services. Don't forget all the dumpsters in various sizes. You can get the big ones, the little ones, in between. Clean out the garage, your office, like I should, and you'll be all set to go for this fall and winter. Western Way Services, always serving you, always at your disposal. 734-6969. Absolutely the best. Remember, everybody, at Ramsey Heating and Electric, along with Lennox Home Comfort Systems, they can help you stay nice and good and cozy and warm inside this winter. And you might get up to a $1,600 rebate on a new Lennox Home Comfort System. Call Ramsey Heating and Electric today at 678-0459. Real quick also, and this is really, really important to remember, people that are serving you and your family, like Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert with Joel Heward, his family, and his staff, always there to serve you. And they have very flexible hours. They're there when you need them to help you. And they can travel to the rural towns and the churches to help you with the various arrangements after there's the passing of a loved one. And remember, always upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Number to call, 436-5636. With me in the studio is one of my dearest friends, and I'm very, very complimentary to him for all that he's done to help us over the years, and that's, of course, Jack Euler. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning.
And by the way, again, a happy anniversary to you and your wife celebrating 50 years.
Yes,
She's
thank you.
Tough lady.
She had to be.
Okay, I want to get right to it because we don't have a lot of time this morning. It has now been coming out that the Interior Department said that it's withdrawing the protections for 10 million acres of federal land in regards to the sage grouse. Give me a background and a little thumbnail sketch of what you think is going to happen.
Well, first, I would like to say this is as a result of Donald Trump becoming president. And then I would like to say they are moving in the right direction to be able to use the lands that we have in the West that everybody thinks they have their hands on, and they think it's theirs. And as a result of what has happened, there's going to be a lot of lawsuits filed from the environmental side against this decision.
I'm going to have to ask you, Jack, to hold the mic a little higher and not on a cord because, yeah, right there, if you would, please. So you think the environmentalists are going to jump on this like a cat to a plate of milk?
Yes. Totally, they are going to jump on it.
And to what reason and to what final accord? Do you think that the environmentalists, with their money, and they've got more than anybody, can reverse this decision?
Not as long as we have a Republican in the White House. But it can be reversed, just as it is now. But the environmentalists think they own the public lands and private lands, and you can't drill anymore, you can't do this, you can't do that. I've been in too many meetings with these people.
Well, you've been on this program many times, and we've talked about not only the wolf issue, but this issue with the sage grouse. And the last time you were on the air, which was probably, 2 months ago here in the studio, you weren't real optimistic as to what was going to happen. But this is good news for ranchers and miners, and quite frankly, it's good news for the general public.
That's right, because it's going to open up our tax base, a whole bunch of things. If you think about all the things that are going on and the things that can be done on public lands, and they're not out to. There's going to be watchdogs watching public lands that we're not ruining public lands. It's just like, say, the wild horse deal.
Oh, my goodness.
And, the BLM treats wild horses a lot different than they treat ranchers on public lands. And I was told the other day in a meeting that there is not supposed to be more than 25,000 wild horses in the West. And today there is over 75,000 horses.
I can respond to that a little bit, and we're going to be doing a special series on the wild horses on this program in a matter of a few days, as a matter of fact, hopefully this next week. And some of the reports that I've read, and in some respects, bear me out on this, the BLM's hands are tied as to what they can do and can't do with wild horses. Whether they have a roundup program, or whether they had a euthanasian program, or whether they were having a neutering program, whatever the case might be, there's always been that one key word that always comes up like a fly in the milk: the environmentalists jumping in to stop everything.
That's right. Totally. I was down to that horse ranch down south of Wells a couple of weeks ago. And, that's where they take the wild horses. And it's unbelievable. It's the only ranch that had, mine and your tax dollars, built that thing and bought it. But it's the only ranch between here and Ely, Nevada, that has all their hay under metal roof.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
But, the desecration to the land and the wild horses numbers are increasing every year to the point where they're unmanageable numbers. And I've got that in a report that I think I gave you the information on. I hope I did. And it's getting worse every day, and it's an unmanageable situation, and it's unmanageable because people are trying to stop it. The management.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I was told by, Toby Boudreaux, Fish and Game, that the Idaho Fish and Game still has a building up south of Nampa for wild horses being, when they kill them, to be butchered and hung in that building. It's a cooling building.
Yeah.
And then when they get the building full, they're supposed to ship them overseas. Well, they haven't used it for years and years and years because you can't kill them anymore.
And the thing is, we don't mean to sound harsh, and a lot of people are going, oh, we don't want to kill those little wild horses. But you know what? You've got a management problem right now. And there is only so much public land to be used by a lot of different people. But I can honestly say that with this overgrazing, with the wild horses and the desecration to the land, the numbers were agreed to, like a lot of things that were agreed to, of having a substantial number and a workable number of 25,000 in round figures. Now they are exceeding and getting up to close to 3/4 more, almost 100,000 head. That is not managing.
No, it isn't. And it goes back to sage grouse. Everything needs to be managed.
Yes.
And when I was on that governor's task force for sage grouse for almost 3 years, and we came up with good management plans, and the government told the states to make these plans, but then when they did, they just threw them in the wastebasket, and that was it.
Do you think, Jack, that if the general public really understood how much money of their tax dollars are going to support this, as far as like the wild horses in the holding pens, the daily feed, the daily veterinary cost, everything, and it's similar to the sage grouse issue, the taxpayers are footing the bill, and yet the environmentalists are reaping the rewards.
That's right. And I have asked in meetings, face-to-face, as close as you and I, how much money as an environmental group have you put on the ground to save a species? And do you know what their answers always are? Is we don't put money on the ground to save these species. We spend our money on attorneys and courts.
Now, there's a question I've got there. Are they really spending their money on lawyers in the courts? I've heard and read that basically you and I, the taxpayers, are kind of footing the bill for them.
That's totally true. And there's some offices, environmental groups, that their average salary is $260,000 a year.
Oh, that's kind of what you make.
Yeah.
No, but explain that, how the taxpayers literally are on the hook for both sides. They're kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't.
That's right. And I had a congressman from Utah I was good friends with, and we used to work in the same office in Utah. He and I would talk on the phone at least once a month.
We have a caller with a question. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air for Jack Euler. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Zep, this is just he talked about the horse ranch over there by Ely, but there's the other one up in...
hold on just a second, caller. Wheels, you've got to turn up the callers. I cannot hear him. Go ahead, please.
The big feedlot they have over by Reno where they have those Mustangs over there.
Yeah.
I've been around horses all my life, Zeb, and I'm telling you, that's not a life for them horses. Why don't they let them go full circle and go ahead and slaughter them? That's no life for a horse.
Well, it's no life being in those holding pens 24/7, 365, and the adoption program, by the way, is absolutely. Now I'm getting a whole bunch of feedback wheels. The adoption program has been a waste of time, I think, and effort, because there are not that many people adopting wild Mustangs because, quite frankly, it's too expensive.
Well, at one time I had some of those horses, and at one time, when it first started, you could get them for nothing. Now they're charging you. You have to pay to get them. And they're good horses if you can break the younger ones. But them older ones, those 6 and 7 year old studs and that, you're gonna have a hard time. You might as well just let them go full circle, Zeb.
Yes, I agree with you, and I think the whole program has to be completely reevaluated. Thank you for your comments, and I'm going to have Jack respond. Go ahead, Jack, please.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
It's totally true, and but it goes back to what Zeb was talking about. Who's footing the bill for all of this? You got 2 places in Nevada that they have wild horses, and essentially in holding pens, the one over by Reno and the one down south of Wells. But you and I are footing the bill for all this stuff.
You know, really, you've got to look at the environmental movement in this country and go back 17 years ago to the wolf reintroduction, and then, of course, prior to that, the spotted owl controversy, and, of course, the salmon being flushed down the Columbia, etc., to the ocean, and now with the sage grouse, and then, of course, the wild horses. Everything is for what the environmentalists can get in their favor, and basically to heck with humankind. It's about time that humans had somebody standing up in their corner, isn't it?
That's right. And I get so frustrated in meetings with these people, and over the years, I've been in a lot of them.
Give me an example of, I know you've been at a lot of these meetings, whether it's the Wolves or whatever, but what's the demeanor of a meeting like this? I mean, does everybody get a fair shake, or what goes on here?
Well, everybody gets a fair shake in what they want to say, but then that's a good question, and there's some interesting things that go on.
That's why I asked.
Do you know where the decisions are made? It's outside of that meeting after some of the people have left.
You mean like on the steps? Really?
And at night, a group gets together and they...
But what good, and I don't mean to stir up some old mud, but what good does a meeting like this do when, let's go back to the wolf issue just for a moment, when you make an agreement that you think is going to be applied by both sides of the issue and adhered to by both sides of the issue, and then maybe 3-4 months at best later, they change the rules. I mean, what's going on here?
You can't ever get ahead of it. And that's what is going to be thrown at this sage grouse thing, is they're going to just keep throwing stuff at it in hopes that something sticks to the wall in their favor. Zeb, we've been hammered by the environmental groups, and we're going to keep being hammered by environmental groups. And there was 3 on the Sage Grouse Task Force that were there in every meeting.
Yeah.
And then you'd have others sitting around. But, it gets frustrating.
Well, in the article that was in the paper the other day that was written by the Associated Press, there was one little bitty paragraph that stood on its own that really bothered me, and I highlighted it. It said, environmental groups said, interior was jeopardizing the bird's habitat and its survival. Right there when I read that, I thought, nobody in their right mind, whether it's mining interests, whether it's ranching interests, whether it's recreational interests or whatever, are going to go out now in this day and age and purposely try to destroy any habitat that would re-endanger the closure of these lands. Am I wrong?
That's totally true. And you cannot, these people will not address that kind of stuff. They just want to hammer you and get some words out that will be in the press.
The Bureau of Land Management, here's one of the paragraphs that I read in the earlier part of the story, and I want you to respond to this. The Bureau of Land Management, an interior agency, said a recent analysis showed that mining or grazing would not pose a threat to the sage grouse. How come they didn't find this out before?
They've known that. BLM was at every one of those meetings. Every one.
So is it kind of like kissing up to the current administration?
That's right. That's totally true. And, you know, there's something going on, on the sage grouse that was supposed to go on out down south of that town just over the border in Utah.
By Snowville?
No.
Tremonton?
No, out by the Nevada border.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
go ahead.
That little town. They were going to, the BLM was going to build a big, just south of that town, they were going to build a big place down there where they could study sage grouse.
Kind of a sanctuary.
And live.
Yeah.
You could live. There was going to be houses. There was going to be buildings.
The sage grouse issue, though, over the years with the Obama administration, it absolutely even destroyed people's homes, private homes and housing developments, didn't it?
Totally true. Totally true. And there's 11 states that have sage grouse in them, and this 10 million acres is not
Let me ask
very
you this.
many.
Let me ask you this, though. There are those out there that are going to do everything they can to make sure that the Trump presidency is only a 4-year presidency. The left is absolutely, they're committed to making sure that he is out of office in the next election. Now, take us through up till 2020 with these kind of changes, and then all of a sudden people are making plans for the future. Maybe they're expanding their ranch. Maybe they're adding more cattle to it, maybe mining interests or whatever the case might be. And then, bam, all of a sudden they get hit over the head with a 2x4.
Well, take the ranchers on that mountain west of Elko.
Yeah.
And those ranchers, they found out what would come down from the government in these cases, and they were just kicked off from that land, and that's when Grant Gerber and those ranchers decided on that trip to Washington, D.C. on their horses and went from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, and that's where my good friend Grant Gerber lost his life, and we lost a man in the West that fought for our rights.
He was a man for the West.
Yes,
absolutely.
He was.
Jack, I wished I had more time. It's always great to have you on the program. Just give me a real short answer on this. Are you optimistic for the next at least 3 years leading up to 2020?
Yes. On the sage grouse, you bet. Yeah.
Okay.
It couldn't be any better because of what we have. Who is over the interior? The guy from Montana.
Zinke.
Yes.
Right.
And I am very optimistic about that kind of stuff.
Okay, now I want to say this, that I had to bribe Jack to come out with one of my wife's great zucchini bread rolls, and you have it. Now you're satisfied. You can go out to your car, and you can eat the whole thing all by yourself, okay?
I'll go over here by the lake, okay. And I'll sit there.
Jack Euler, God bless you, man.
Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you. Dear friend Jack Euler, and I just have the utmost respect for that man.
I'd like to say to Wheels, get better.
No, by the way, he just said to you, Wheels, get better and stay healthy. That's great. Jack, thank you very much for being on the program. Right now, we're going to run and do some commercials, and then we have another guest coming up in just a few minutes. I want to remind everybody about some really, really great people over at Ark Animal Hospital with Dr. Bill and the whole crew taking care of your animals. You know, you've got animals, you got pets, you want to take care of them, and they absolutely can. They're a mixed animal practice, meaning big or small. They love them all. They're located at 750 21st Street near Connection Credit Union in Heyburn. The number to call, 678-1177. Dr. Bill and his crew have been voted Minnecache's best veterinary hospital on numerous times. Don't forget Ark Animal Hospital, serving you and your pets and livestock. 678-1177. They do have the warm hearts for the cold noses. Hey, by the way, too, our friend Jeff Bronson is back. Da-da-da-dump-da-dump at Lee's Furniture. And I'm telling you, it's time to get your house ready for the holidays. Lee's Furniture is having a special on window coverings. And, those great window coverings can help regulate temperatures and the sun and the cold air. I'll tell you what, you better stop in and check it out today. And if you mention that you heard me talking about Lee's Furniture at 459 Overland Avenue in Burley, they will give you an additional 10% off on floor coverings, carpet, vinyl, luxury vinyl planks, everything. You stop in and see my friends today at Lee's Furniture, Floors and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Really, really nice people. Busy day, and again, I thank my dear friend Jack Euler for coming out and being on the program this morning, and we also want to acknowledge our friends over at Let's Ride. Oh boy, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. This is where the fun is sold. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 4. All the new snowmobiles are over there. I hate to talk about the snow, but boy, you can have fun outside in the angel dandruff with the new snowmobiles. They've got them all, including a lot of 4x4s, side-by-sides to get up in the hills and really enjoy the fall colors. All of this, great accessory department and a super service department at Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, where the fun is sold. By the way, if you're over in that neck of the woods, don't forget also our friends at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. I stress the fact that you need to be protected. You need to be insured. Make sure that you've got life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning for you and your family's safety, and employee benefits for your business. All of this and more by dedicated and responsive agents serving you at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Make an appointment, 436-4424. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the phone line, and I am very, very honored to have this man come back on my program and discuss a subject that all of us should be cognizant of, and that is the evils in our society today, and they're growing like a cancer. With me is Dr. Alvin Schmidt. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am fine, thank you, and great to be hearing you again.
Well, you know, Dr. Schmidt, it's a privilege to have you and your thoughts on my program. And when I make a statement like evil in our society, I'm 70 years old, and I honestly feel that in the last 30 years, we've seen a complete transition away from the family values, away from the church values, away from everyday values of meeting and greeting and working with people. Am I wrong when I say that evil seems to be permeating itself in our society?
Not at all. In fact, it's very much pronounced, and most of the time I don't think we're even quite aware of how widespread evil is. We tend to think, for example, what happened in Las Vegas recently, where the shooter killed 59 people and wounded 500 others, that's about the only form of evil, and forgetting at the same time that, for example, the great evil of abortions that is occurring each and every day in our country. We have 1.3 million abortions every year in the United States alone. Talk about evil, but it's not recognized as evil. In fact, we try to camouflage it and justify it by saying abortion is a woman's right, it's her health. It's got nothing to do with her health, except that in their mind, and so on down the line. So when we have 1.3 million abortions every year in the United States, that amounts to 3,562 every day, or 148 every hour. That's a lot more, for example, than you and I would possibly imagine. Yet all this is evil, and it's not even talked about. In fact, we have legalized it in 1973 when the Supreme Court made abortion legal. And it's not only in the United States. For example, in the world at large, from 1980, 1,470,000,000 people, abortions were committed worldwide. Planned Parenthood in our society alone from 1970 has helped over 7 million abortions to take place.
Oh, my.
Each year, this continues on and on. And we don't even recognize it as evil. It is a much greater evil than what happened in Las Vegas when you consider the great numbers of innocent lives that are being snuffed out.
Absolutely.
The world has at the moment about 7.5 billion people, but we have already, as I mentioned a little while ago, committed by abortion from 1980 about 1.5 billion. It's just mind-blowing, and yet it's not seen as evil.
Absolutely.
But it's woman's choice, and so on down the line. This is a way of covering evil that obviously must horrify God.
You know, we have a caller with a question and a comment, so stand by, Dr. Schmidt. Go ahead, please, caller. Quickly, you're on the air.
Well, we have access to every kind of information we want. Anything that we could possibly want. Some of this stuff is so vile and foul, and then there's stuff out there that is pure and great and knowledgeable to increase our knowledge and make us better people. But what do you think human nature does? It always goes towards the dark side. And evil flourishes in every device if we allow it to. And everybody's got a phone and everybody's on it. And you say to yourself, it'd be nice if they were studying their scriptures with the device, or they were learning about history or anything. But no, they're distracted. And if there's something they don't feel good about, like maybe having an abortion, they quickly get it over with and get back on their phone and get back to the distractions of life. And the devil's handiwork, in some cases, are these devices. I'll hang up.
Respond to that caller, please, Dr. Schmidt.
I beg your pardon?
I said, would you respond to that caller, please?
Yeah, basically, he's quite correct. I mean, I don't have any disagreement with what he's saying. In other words, he's saying in a different way that we're covering evil, we're denying it, we're not facing it, and our mass media, for example, is part of the problem in that they don't really point out all the evils. They get all bent out of shape, and rightly so, relative to what happened in Las Vegas. But at the same time, this is only one of these present evils. What about all these others, as I mentioned, the abortion? For example, also, we tend to think only when an event happens, for example, as with the World Trade Center back in 2001, that that's only evil. But the world is full of evil, and we don't seem to recognize that. And I think that's what the caller was saying.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with him. And we tend to go on. We hide ourselves behind our smartphones. We hide ourselves with watching mind-numbing television. and as a result of it, we never really recognize evil. You know, the good Lord says, for example, in Genesis 8, the imagination of man's mind is evil from his youth. Ever since the fall of man that took place in the Garden of Eden, human beings are bent toward evil. And the world is full of it. You know, the Bible uses the word evil 633 times. And many times when we read, for example, the Old Testament history, how frequently God says that Israel engaged in evil, his chosen people, that they ignored God. And Paul told the Christians, reject every kind of evil. Yet we tend to tolerate it, sometimes even support it. For example, going back to the abortion and Planned Parenthood, much of it is supported by tax money that you and I give to the government but have no choice as to how it's used and directed. But again, it can perpetuate evil. We have a very selective view of evil. In other words, we don't recognize that it's, as St. Paul said, the whole creation groaneth and travaileth over the matter of evil that's present in our society, has always been. And one of the things that we need to remember as Christians, that we want to fight evil in every way possible when it rears its ugly head and not be taken in. And I think this is what the caller was mentioning in part two, taken in and by societal acceptance of certain acts that are evil but not defined and considered as evil.
Dr. Schmidt, let me ask you this. When you look at the situation today with groups of people, and when I say groups, I'm talking about perhaps the millennial generation. I'm talking about the acceptance perhaps of the Islamic ideology. I'm talking about the acceptance of the transgenderism and the LGBT. And I'm talking about people that would accept abortions and not respect human life on the elderly part of the scale. We're seeing a complete change in no morals, no family values, and no respect for the laws. Can we ever put this thing back on the tracks again?
I pray a lot that we would, but I am at the point, and I've been saying it for several years now, I think it's over. I think we have lost. I'll continue to fight. But the forces of evil are so strong that I'll let good Lord intervene, and I'm not sure he will. Because there comes a time, as mentioned in the New Testament, that God wipes the dust off his feet relative to the people involved. I'm also mindful of Dostoevsky, the Russian writer, who said, quote, if God does not exist, then everything is permissible, end of quote, in his book, Brothers Karamazov. This is where we are. God is being denied. We can no longer say, in God we trust. We can no longer have people invoke the name of God or pray, for example, if they want to. The atheistic movement and others, this is all politically incorrect if you do pray. But this brings to mind the Dostoevsky statement. If God does not exist, then everything is permitted. In his book, that's where he discusses. Basically, the whole book discusses the nature of evil. And then we've had people like Karl Marx come on the scene in the 1800s, a little over 150 years ago, advocating communism, violent revolution. And we know, for example, of them. Well, it's been estimated back in 1999, an author by the name of Stephen Courtois, the Black Book of Communism, documents that communism was responsible for 100 million deaths since the days of Karl Marx. We have to only remember the evils that Lenin engaged, Stalin, Mao Zedong in China, Pol Pot in Cambodia, that took millions of lives. This is again what happens when you deny the existence of God, as all of these communist leaders from Marx on did. That's the product. Dostoevsky was correct. Then everything is permitted, and we're at that stage today.
Dr. Schmidt, I said I said something in the first hour, and Wheels over at the station ride the gain on that feedback. I said something in the first hour that riled some of the people that are listeners to this program, but I'm going to stand behind my words. I think that those of us that are Christians, those of us that believe in family values and community values and respecting one another, it's about time or past time that we're going to have to stand up and meet the groups called Antifa, meet the groups called Black Lives Matter, meet the groups that want to tear apart our history and desecrate it, and there's got to almost come a civil war of right and wrong in this country, because I said this, we can't turn the other cheek anymore. Would you agree or disagree with me?
I very much agree with you. In fact, I have been saying we're only about 6 inches away from a civil war. And I do not envision, I cannot imagine the great divide that we have, that we will ever be a united country again. It's just what you mentioned, Antifa, and the other terrorist organization. It's been taught at our universities, for example. No longer is free speech permitted. We have created safe zones for the so-called snowflakes who cannot entertain an idea that they haven't heard before or doesn't fit their prejudices. And as a result of that, free speech is denied to, for example, indicate what some of these organizations that they participate in, Antifa, for instance, is just one example. I'm also mindful of only 2 years ago, a fellow by the name of David Fiorazo wrote an excellent book, The Cost of Our Silence, of Christians taking the path of least resistance. We as Christians have been too silent. And when I'm reminded of Edmund Burke, the British parliamentarian at the time of the American Revolution, who said, the best way for evil to conquer is for good men to do and say nothing. And I'm afraid part of the problem that evil has arisen in these last couple of decades or so is because we as Christians have been deaf mute, so to speak. We have done nothing. And it's high time, for example, that we stand up and let ourselves be heard. But we're afraid even to have someone accuse us of being politically incorrect. And as a result of that, the Christians have basically become, what shall I say, useless in our society. We tend to think things are not quite as bad as they are. And again, not realizing, not recognizing that it's, for example, widespread in our society today. Public schools today are primarily citadels of paganism, where even morality, the Ten Commandments, are not permitted to be taught. So what's the end result? The growth of evil, not recognized as evil. We have people now, for example, as a result of Trump having been elected, that we've seen violence, smashing windows in streets at random without any logical reason or direction, but it's an example of evil being, again, alive and well, in pursuit of one goal, namely what they define as just. And when you look at it, they have no idea what justice is. What they really want is to destroy our present constitutional form of a government, which they hate and despise. It's not just, for example, that they despise Christians. They despise our Constitution.
Yes.
They're working hard at eliminating it, and they may succeed if we stay asleep at the switch.
You know, and Christians and churches all across this country, and I don't care what the denomination is, there has already been stories, there have already been groups of these wild-eyed millennial groups, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, etc., that don't like the crosses on top of churches. They don't like churches being in full view of the public, and they want to do away with the cross. They want to do away with the churches. This is what it's going to take to push parishioners and congregations to finally say, wait a minute, I'm going to stand up for my faith and fight back. But it's the 11th hour as far as I'm concerned, and they better do something soon.
I agree, and many times I think we are living in a cocoon in terms of not being aware of what's going on. You know, even when they want to remove all the crosses, well, what are they really doing? they're really denying that the crucifixion, which is one of the world's greatest evils, which is what it amounts to. It's not just the fact that they don't like Christians, but they deny the fact that Christ was crucified, as I said, one of the world's greatest evils. Again, we tend not to recognize what's going on when they're doing it. It's more than simply saying we don't want Christians to pray, we don't want a cross visible. No, they want to deny the evil that was perpetrated 2,000 years ago on the cross of nailing Jesus to it.
One of the things that I've said on my program is that God does not make mistakes. And when I look at the evil of what's going on with the so-called sexual revolution in our country, with the LGBT and the transgenders, etc., trying to take over and dictate and rule to us, that's when I think it's time to draw that line in the sand and say no more with our children as far as young as kindergartners all the way through the college ranks. I've had enough, and I think it's time to fight back. Your thoughts quickly.
Yes, quite right. And you know, we have been teaching for years in schools the ideology of relativism. In other words, that there's no absolute truth. And the sad part about it is, according to some research from the Barna Group, indicates that about 2/3 of the Christians today, particularly the younger generation, have bought into that false propaganda that there is no absolute truth. Like, for example, the Ten Commandments are absolute truth. No, we're given to relativism, and when everything is relative, there is no more truth, and then anything and everything is possible. And only those who have the power will do whatever they wish, and are not constrained by any right or wrong, because relativism argues that there is no right or wrong. It is all just a matter of people defining what's right or wrong who happen to have the power. And that is what we see going on in our society today. It is, it's a fight for the survival of morality, for Christianity, and all of those things that we have as a nation over 250 years prospered with. And now we're willing to destroy it because a couple of groups and individuals who have been brainwashed in universities in the name of education that the United States is a nation of evil, and therefore it needs to be destroyed. Its Constitution was written by white men, and white men were racist, and therefore we need not pay attention to it. That's where we are today. And it's a massive attempt of committing suicide unknowingly.
Doctor, I want to ask you one final question, and I've only got about a minute and a half left. But what about the young pastors or the young men getting into the church today? Are they so concerned about political correctness they're not doing the job of really teaching and preaching the Bible?
I believe so. I mean, I see it all too often, for example, many times, and I mentioned a little while ago, I tend to get the impression that including our pastors are living in a social cocoon. It's often not even mentioned in a prayer that given things that are going on in our world today, that God would intervene and that we would say, Lord, have mercy. It's not happening. I think we still tend to think that things were like they were in the 1950s when we had peace and complacency and compliance and all that. Those days are gone. You can't turn on the television. You can't turn on the radio. And what do you hear? The perpetration of evil, violence. And that's what it's become fashionable today. And it's wrong for you or me to even draw attention to it. Then we are accused of hate mongers, of bigots, of people who are opposed to diversity and all these other things, for example, that are shibboleths bandied about today that have in many ways kind of brainwashed the people and forced them into basically what I often call a form of 20th century monasticism, withdrawn from the world, not recognizing what's going on right around them.
Absolutely. Dr. Alvin Schmidt, and I've never met this man personally or shook his hand, but I consider him a dear friend for coming on this program numerous times. Dr. Schmidt, the very best of God's blessings to you and your family, and thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you, my pleasure, and I hope one of these days I'd like to be able to see you face to face, and maybe it'll happen someday.
I hope so, sir. God bless you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you again.
All right, sir. I have utmost respect for that man, Dr. Alvin Schmidt, back in Illinois. Thank you for being on the program this morning, talking about something that we all need to talk about, the evil in our society. Right now it's time for the weather, and the weather brought to you this hour by Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. CPAs providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years. These people really are committed to providing the best of tax return preparation, tax planning, financial statement preparation, payroll services, retirement planning. You need to get in there and talk to them about your business, your family, your situation. They can and will help you. Don't forget, with offices in Burley and Rupert, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Right now, here's the weather.
Here's your weather forecast as we saddle up and ride again for this Tuesday. Today is going to be the nicest day that we have as we move through the work week. Sunny skies is what we're looking at, slightly breezy. High of 63 tonight, clear skies, low of 37 tomorrow. The winds are definitely going to be picking up, and we're looking at a high of 57 under mostly sunny skies. Tomorrow night, clear with a low of 31. Tomorrow, going to be a lot cooler. However, still, we're going to see some sunshine, high of 49 with an overnight low of 31 for Friday as we kick off the weekend. 20% chance of rain showers are in the forecast, only a high of 46. That's your weather for Zebeth Ranch.
Thank you, Gina. Appreciate it. And the weather brought to you this hour by Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. I'm telling you, these people really are good. You know, you might have questions about starting a business, or maybe you want to hire more employees, or whatever, bookkeeping questions. They can, and like I said, will help you. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Oh, my goodness sakes. Thank you for providing the weather. And coming up next hour, we're going to have Dr. History and a substitute coming out of the bullpen. Gary Shoresman's going to be on the program. Dr. History is gone for today. And then at 10:32, Chris Horner with the E&E Legal Company talking about our electric grid. Don't forget, too, Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center at 924 Christian Way in Rupert. You know, they're the only assisted living facility located in Rupert, and they're really, really able to provide more one-on-one care. That means a lot. You know, maybe your loved one's having trouble being by themselves, taking care of themselves. This is an answer. Don't forget to stop by, visit, check it out, take a tour, find out more about Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center. And don't forget that they really want to care for your loved ones, and I urge you to call the number right now today, 436-3200, Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center, 924 Christian Way in Rupert. They're small compared to some, but with a bigger heart than most. You give them a call today. Had a good hour with Jack Euler and Dr. Alvin Schmidt, and boy, we've got two great big home run hitters coming up this next hour on Zebeth Ranch, and we want to urge you one more time, I want to hit the boots. We need boots to go to Texas and help our friends and neighbors and fellow citizens that lost almost everything down there in the Hurricane Harvey flood in the greater Houston area, and we're working with some of the FFAs in the area down there to make sure that the equipment and the boots gets to the people that need it most. And boots, we've had a good response so far. This is going to be the last week. We're going to be highlighting this. Our three drop-off points are the Minnecasia Les Schwab Tire Centers over in Rupert with Lane, over in Paul with the Twist family, and in Burley with Randy at Tires West. Stop in. Please drop those off. I really appreciate your help. Right now, we're going to take a little break, and CBS News coming up next. Welcome back. Our next and last hour. My goodness, this morning's gone by fast. Holy smokes. Zebeth Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with a great big fall tire sale going on right now. And also some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Call them at 734-6969. Want to remind you quickly about another segment that that we have on Thursdays we're very proud of, Cassia County School Days, brought to you by A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley for all the young ones, toys and clothes and the cribs and the baby furniture. And they do have also the top-rated #1 car seat by Chico at A Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley. Along with the Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue, Suite E in Burley. And the number to call to find out more about your outpatient surgeries so they can save you money on life-saving colonoscopies, carpal tunnel, hand surgery, etc., 677-8888. Ambulatory Surgery Center and A Child's World, bringing you School Days in Cassia County. But right now, it's time for Dr. History on Zeb at the Ranch. And over at our main studios, my dear friend, a noted historian of Southern Idaho, and this is going to be filling in for Dr. History, Gary Shoresman. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
My goodness, I feel like I should have a theater marquee with your name on it with flashing lights this morning.
I'd rather take the money.
You know, you and I were talking earlier this morning before I went on the air about the subject matter for today and the drought of 1919. It's nothing new to have drought conditions in southern Idaho. Evidently, you've got quite a story about that year.
Well, it's quite interesting because, for years and years, everybody talked about, and particularly with dry farmers, and even irrigation down here in the irrigation project, or north and south of the river, rabbits was a huge problem. And some years you'd have a light rainfall, but never quite a drought. But in 1919, they reported that it was the worst drought since records started being kept in 1895. So from 1895, and that's before the Minidoka Irrigation Project began, this is the worst drought that they could have. And how they really could understand that really was they had to cut the water flow. Now this is in June and July, 40%. Now the Main A Canal north of that runs from Minidoka Dam to Asequa irrigates all of Minidoka County. And if that was cut 40%, and farmers were then cut now in June and July. Now, mind you, that's the big time for water when you really need it for your crops. In this particular growing season here we have, farmers might have had 4 days to irrigate. They were cut down to 2. So what gets the water, what doesn't get the water, and your livelihood and everything depends on water. Now, what we see today is we have the underground wells, and we have plenty of water. Our dams are fine. We built extra dams. The American Falls Dam wasn't even really built at this time. And so all we really had right here was Milner and Minidoka Dam. And so it was pretty scary. Now, I focused a lot on the dry farmers. Now, I grew up on an irrigated farm, but my family came out here and were dry farmers on the north side out by Kamima. Now, I found the records from when Kamima, which was a water stop and also had loading chutes for loading cattle, instead of driving them all the way down from the north of Kerry Hills and that area down to here to load up, they'd load up on the trains and ship their cattle or sheep across the country. But what happened is in 1892, now that's 10 years after the Union Pacific Oregon Short Line Railroad is built through this area, they did a study of the area, and they were going to plat this little town site of what was to become Kamima. And in one of the most telling statements, they talked about the sandy loam soil, volcanic this and volcanic that, and how rich and wonderful it was, and how it would grow any kind of crop. And then they put a comma and put but. It must be irrigated. So 20 years later, enter 330 dry farmers from all over the country. The railroad and the irrigation project said, well, let's get them out here and farm this land and whatever, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And, of course, within 10 years, they were all gone. Rabbits didn't help them, but it was the drought that showed up in 1919, but it really began in 1917 and 1918, and you don't just get the water drained in 1 year. It comes up within a matter of 2 years, and then you really notice the shortage in that 1 year. And, of course, some of the farmers then had to, now they already had patents on their 320-acre farms, but they mortgaged them for 1 year at 12% interest.
Oh, my.
Out. So here they lost, had they just walked off, kept the property, they probably wouldn't have, been thrown out of their homes. But, when these mortgagers wouldn't even let, for instance, my grandfather take the car and 13 kids. They had to hire the neighbor or depend on the neighbors to come and haul them off to the railroad to get them out. So,
Gary, let me ask you a question right there. These farmers that came in, and I forgot the number that you said came in to be dry farmers, did they not know or realize, or were they given false information about the climatic conditions here, about the possibility that dry farming would be a bust?
No, they were all homesteaders from back in the Dakotas, North and South Dakota, and Kansas and Nebraska, and all this kind of thing. So, and came from well-to-do farms, but they certainly had much more rainfall. The thing that really spurred these people on was the promise of water. Now, in 1913, it was published in the Rupert Pioneer Record, which became the Minidoka County News, that when the American Falls Dam is built, that water that will be captured there will be let down to the Minidoka Dam, and the surveyors had already surveyed 1913 from Minidoka Dam north to the little town of Minidoka, and weaved its way all the way over to Kaimana to provide irrigation water to that entire north side project, which eventually became the Veterans Project in 1953. But so those people had every expectation that water would be coming. What they did not know at the time was that American Falls Dam was not completed until 1927, practically 7 years after they were all broke and gone. So the bureaucrats had one thing going and a promise of water coming. Well, that old farmer out there, he's working the soil, and he puts his trust in the government and this and that and whatever, and works hard, does all the regulations to get his patent on his property, and hauled water, and they even at their own expense dug wells down 300-400 feet to get waters for their windmill.
Wow.
So they were pretty self-sufficient. At the same time, now much earlier than say when when these farmers came in 1911 up to the north side, much earlier, before the railroad ever came through here, were the farmers, the dry farmers that came up from Utah and settled in Clear Creek, Stand Rod, settled in the Elba Valley and the Raft River Valley. Now, early on in 1869, 1870, the Sweetser, Pierce, and Shirley Company brought 10,000 head of cattle up here.
Wow.
And at that time, the Raft River had been backed up by beaver streams, so that whole Raft River was not like we see it today. It was a marshy, boggy, grass-filled, willow-filled. It would feed elk, it would feed moose, it sustained the beaver, and the trappers were in seventh heaven when they hit Raft River.
Yeah.
Well, through the years, so then, ironically enough, they were Mormon immigrants who had joined the Mormon Church, and for instance, many of them came from England, and I'll use them as an example, England and Wales, who were stonemasons and professionals at their trade, and they came to, of course, ended up in Utah. Some made it by boat, some made it by wagon, train, and many others. Some even did that hand cart routine all the way to Utah. So they were a hardy stock, but no matter how hard it was, they had never forgotten their trade. So what you see in the South Hills are beautiful brick homes that were built by these stonemasons, and they made their own brick right there on their places, so it wasn't shipped in from anywhere. So when you see homesteaders and dry farmers of one group, one part of the world coming to a south central Idaho, we still have they started off with those. They cut down the timber, they'd notch the logs, they'd put them together and build a log home. Now, out at Kaimana, they didn't build log homes because they were already past that stage back in the Dakotas. They built substantial, nice, big homes that were all made of wood, 2 stories with glass and this and that and whatever. And so looking around the country, we only see architecture from those original immigrants, but we see that they had a commonality that it didn't matter if you came in 1885, 1890, or 1895, all of them by 1919 were suffering from the lack of water, and especially down in the South Hills, and of course out in the north side. If the rain didn't come, you got about your grain maybe grew, 10 inches, and then it dried out, and that was it if the rabbits hadn't already eaten it. So in the South Hills, and I call that the Standrod area, 1895, in Elba, they were getting water rights from all of those little creeks up in the hills. Mm-hmm. A homesteader came right along there, and he could go and file on the water rights for that particular stream on his property, and many of those streams emptied into Cassia Creek, which then goes through Connor Pass and empties into Raft River. Now, in 1910, when things are looking good, they are planning on building a dam at the Narrows, which is down between the City of Rocks and Standrod, and back that all up at the Narrows. And they were going to irrigate the Raft River. Well, by 1919, that's over with, but one of the bugaboos is that there were people who wanted to build the railroad from Burley to Kelton, Utah, and going down past Raft River, and that's how the little town of Idaho got started. They were going to be able to, instead of having to ship their grain by horse and wagon to American Falls, or haul it, I should say, and to Burley, it would have been nice to have those big silos and storage areas and put it on the train and go to market. You wouldn't have to wait, drive 40 miles by horse.
Right.
So at that same time in 1909, the government had opened up new land, and the new land was what was left from previous, and that was down by Rockland, south of Indian Springs, down to Roy, north of Malad. So dry farmers came into there and tried their luck on that. So here we have, and what got me started on this whole thing is that I found, now here I am, it's 100 years later, and I am knowing people that I grew up with whose grandparents were the same as mine, except and had the same experience, except they came from Rockland, they came from Elba, they came from Standrod, and I came from Kamima, so to speak, but here we are all living in Rupert, doing quite well, or at least in the area, Rupert and Burley. And looking back, our grandparents, particularly my age, my grandparents, and we're all going through the same thing. So that is the project that I'm working on now, and bringing up personal stories from those people. And so water really did them in 1919.
Let me jump in, Gary, and ask you a couple of questions here. And we're getting short on time, but you were mentioning earlier something that really piqued my attention. How deep did you say they had to dig wells back at that time?
200 to 500 feet.
Okay, now,
where you were.
They did not have, back in those times, I would assume, the luxury of having the best equipment. I mean, digging the wells must have been one heck of a chore.
Now, in Kamima, they had these gas engines, so they could have someone come and drill a well for them. They just didn't have electricity for anything else, so a windmill was the purpose, or to get enough water to have a cistern, which, of course, is a hole in the ground with lined by rock or cement or whatever for your drinking water.
Right. Now, the other thing that you mentioned was after the drought of 1919, many of these people just left. Where did they go, and how did they have the money to take up roots and go someplace else? I mean, this must have been devastating.
Somehow they walked away. Now, my grandpa, and as an example of this, some people from the south moved up to Asequa. They moved to Rupert. They moved different places, to Rockland. They all moved up to this area and got jobs, either working at the dam or working on the farms or renting a place and sharecropping. But they picked themselves up and they went with what they had. And they had their trade, and they had tenacity, and they had a will, and they believed in God, that everything was going to get better and that the sun would shine on their doorstep again, and sure enough it did. And talking to these 12 different families and to people now that are my age, they talk about their grandparents. That's how they survived. They didn't sit around and wait for nothing. There was no handout. There was no welfare. You went and did what you had to do, and you stayed and lived with people until you could get on your feet, but everyone helped everyone. And somewhere, if you went when you got married, everybody got a pig or a cow and a few chickens and this and that. So things didn't really stop just because you went broke. You know, you got up. My grandpa sent 10 kids and my grandma to Lodi, California to stay with her parents, with her brothers and sisters, and she did laundry for the Filipinos who were doing the work in the fields at that time. And in 1923, he was able to bring her back with the kids. And anyway, he had worked in, he was bent his back and loading beets and working in the potato fields, and he paid back all of his creditors. He couldn't pay back the farm that he'd lost, but anybody else that he owed money to. And when he got them all paid, then he went down, he and a friend took 2 Model Ts down through Nevada, which was all dirt road at that time. Took him 2 weeks to get to Lodi and 2 weeks to bring all the kids back in 2 cars.
Oh, my.
And then they started over again in 1924. In 1926, they land on the sand hill that I live on, which is now, or this last winter, was a peninsula when Camp Holly Lake flooded. But anyway, I had great beach property temporarily. Anyway, excuse me. Then A.C. DeMary, he came out as one of the reclamation engineers, and he also set up the first abstract office when Minidoka County came into being. But in 1930, my grandpa owed $30 in taxes. He couldn't pay it. A.C. DeMary loaned it to him, and he paid it out through the next year, and he did that for 4 years for my grandpa, loaning the money, because who wanted the farm anyway?
Yeah.
So give him the money, and he knew my grandpa would pay him back, and he did. Same as the Lloyd family who lives down in Elba. Here they are. They've been in there for 30 years, and Grandma and Grandpa can't make $4 worth of taxes. But one of the daughters worked for a wealthy man and made that money and paid the taxes.
Wow.
And they still have it today.
Wow.
So families pitched in. That's why kids worked then, and it was their home too, and it was their life, and it was their family. So today, you know, you don't get many kids that do that.
You know, I want to jump in here, and maybe I'm putting the cart way before the horse here, but I've only got about 3.5 minutes left in the program. But being from Wisconsin, where they don't depend upon irrigation, I mean, when I came out here, I was absolutely amazed and infatuated with the canal system and the way our pioneers put that whole thing together to distribute water all over this southern part of Idaho and the desert. It's an amazing thing to me, and the development of that canal system must have been absolutely an enormous task.
Oh, it absolutely was. One of the stories is there's thousands of horses, or at least hundreds, are buried in the canal banks. You know, they worked them to death, and if they died, they buried and made them part of the canal. But these people, see, Rogers and Bates, who built Minidoka Dam, it was their first dam. They'd never built one before. And then different groups companies were hired, guys with their teams, and they made the canals. Now, once the canals, and they were all working on a gravity flow that everything would work beautifully as the water flows downhill. Well, as you may or may not know, and I learned, and so did my grandpa and my dad, was that you can get irrigation out there into your field, but one field irrigated to the north, one to the west, one to the south, and then if it overflowed, it went into the borrow pit and over the road. So they had to build laterals or sublaterals, and then they had to build drain ditches. So that all came in later. And then the other thing they found out was one guy thought, well, I'm going to farm this land because it's better on the south side. And, of course, 3 other homesteaders above him ended up doing quite well. But he, once the irrigation water came, he had too much sub-water. Who in the world would have ever thought that we'd have the high sub that we do here in this desert land? And so a lot of them used, the point You go down just 30 feet and you got water, 20 feet you got water. In the section across the hospital in Rupert, you cannot build a basement there because the sub is too hot.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't know that.
In the wintertime, it's not there. Who knew?
Yeah. You know, Gary, I could go on and on talking about this, but I think kind of a summation, the people of 100 years ago here in southern Idaho, they were some tough motor scooters, weren't they?
Well, yes, and they didn't whine or cry. They just said, we need, and, you know, the kids were different. You get a 12 and a 13-year or 14-year-old kid, then they could harness horses, they could take care of it, they could milk the cows, they could help their dad make decisions. They worked in the fields like men, and so they grew up with common sense. The girls knew how to cook, bake, and wash, and you know, birthing babies was no big deal to anybody. They were all right there, and they all... so today, common sense is not what it was then.
Amen. Gary Shoresman, it's always a blessing to talk to you. You've written numerous books, and I'm sure you've got more in the mix to accomplish. God bless you for filling in for Dr. History today. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. What I like about following Dr. History is he tells some great, wonderful stories. And I come in from another direction and look at the land in a different way. So in a way, we kind of complement each
Absolutely.
other with the same people in the same time frame. So I'm really honored that you have me on in his time slot.
You're very welcome, sir, and God bless you for filling in this morning. We appreciate it. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, you're welcome.
God bless. Oh, my goodness. I could listen to him all day long. He knows so much about this area, and he's a great, like he said, compliment to Dr. History filling in. Gary Shoresman, thank you very much. Well, we got to pay some bills here real quick, and I want to remind you about Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox Home Comfort Systems. Oh, yeah, the weather's going to turn, the weather's going to get cold, but you can be comfy inside with a Lennox Home Comfort System, and you can check on possibly getting up to a $1,600 rebate on a new Lennox Home Comfort System through Ramsey Heating and Electric. Call them today at 678-0459. I want to also remind you that coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to send it back over to our main studio, and then we'll have Mr. Chris Horner with the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute coming on our program. But I also want to say thank you again to Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center at 924 Christian Way in Rupert. Number to call, number to remember, 436-3200. They absolutely want you to stop by and visit the facility anytime for a tour. Check them out for the possibility of your loved one staying there that might need a little bit more one-on-one care. They're the only assisted living facility located in Rupert. Please give them a call, 436-3200. Autumn Haven Assisted Living Center, 924 Christian Way in Rupert. They're small compared to some, but with a bigger heart than most. Right now, we'll turn it back over to my itty-bitty buddy Wheels, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
And a welcome back to the last half hour of our show this morning. And we're very happy to have Chris Horner with the Environmental and Energy, I said that backward, Energy and Environmental Legal Institute. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Oh, I apologize, sir. I've been trying to call his number, but he's not answering. I did leave a voicemail.
Okay, well, let me give you another number and call this. Write this down and call it right away, Wheels. 202-262-4458. Call him immediately, please.
Alrighty, sir.
Thank you. While we're waiting, calls are welcome. 436-2244. Deanna, if you could maybe take this and find out what happened to Mr. Horner. And hopefully we're going to get him on here talking about the EPA in just a few moments. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244. 1-866-927-4587. This will give me a little bit of an opportunity to remind you that our October lunch bunch, lunch. We are going to be meeting next week, not this week, next week on the 19th, Thursday the 19th at Denny's Restaurant at 611 North Overland in Burley. That'll be our next lunch bunch. So put that on your calendar, and we've got a lot of door prizes to give away and everything. And if you have never been to lunch bunch, we'd certainly invite you. We usually get around, maybe 50 to 70 to maybe 75 to 80 people, and just really have a great time. So we appreciate it. Wheels, do we have him?
Yes, sir, we do.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have Mr. Chris Horner. Deanne, hand me that sheet back, please, with the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute. And good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Very well. Thank you.
Chris, we're seeing good things, I think, come out of this Trump administration, none of which you're going to hear on the news media, CBS, NBC, ABC, etc. They're not going to ever brag about what he's doing or his administration is doing. But I am really happy about Scott Pruitt being named the EPA administrator and maybe some changes for the better. Maybe you'd like to comment on those.
Well, we've certainly seen them. We know that Administrator Pruitt was one of the strongest voices, if not the strongest voice, in the internal debates that the president set up on the Paris Climate Treaty and keeping his promise.
One moment. Well, Chris, hold on a second. Chris, if you can hear me, your cell phone is fading in and out, and we're having trouble getting you. Is there a landline that you can get to that we can get you on the air? I can't listen to the cell phone when it cuts out.
Nope, I'm nowhere near a landline. Sorry, Zeb.
Well, then don't move. Whatever you do, stay perfectly still, and we'll continue on. Try to pick it up where you were talking about Chris Pruitt again, please.
Scott Pruitt, the EPA administrator, was probably the strongest voice in the internal fights that President Trump arranged, the debates, to see who prevailed in front of him to withdraw from the Paris Climate Treaty, which was a major campaign promise, which was one of those things that none of the establishment Republicans, that many of us, including many of us on the Trump transition team, were initially behind. But we realized that in the end they would not have followed through on necessary steps like that. Well, we've seen another one, and a very related one today. Administrator Pruitt has kept candidate Trump's promise to repeal Barack Obama's the principal thrust of what's called the war on coal. Of course, the Paris Climate Treaty was a major component of that, but the way we were supposedly going to comply in our promises to Europe to ration energy and to, as President Obama promised, necessarily skyrocket your energy costs, those of the seniors and poor, anybody on low and fixed income. Well, to really slam our most vulnerable people, EPA put in place a program that the Supreme Court stayed in an unprecedented move. The Circuit Court hadn't even heard argument on it. In the Supreme Court, it was so blatantly unlawful, and yet I have to tell you, none of us actually think an establishment Republican would have followed through on this promise. They would have left it to the courts and then taking credit for it. Administrator Pruitt today, on behalf of the president, announced he proposed a repeal of this rule. Again, it's been stayed by the Supreme Court in what was, this is not hyperbole, it was an unprecedented intervention by the Supreme Court to make sure this thing did not take effect and start harming the economy and, of course, the most vulnerable. And EPA is following through on it. This is very good news, and we need to see more of this, including, by the way, consummating this promise to get out of that Paris Climate Treaty.
Chris, I'm going to say some things, and if you don't agree with them, I want you to kind of jump on my case, but I'm going to say this. The Obama administration and the Democrats in general, along with the environmental movement in this country, are absolute destitute of any brain matter when it comes to energy, thinking that this country can convert back to solar and wind and be energy efficient and keep the energy grids that we need to keep our cities, our rural areas, all with power. If they try to switch this back again, it's going to fail, and we are going to be living in a stone age. What are your thoughts in my comment?
Well, to the extent that any of their foot soldiers believe that we can just swap out the stuff we left because we could, that is renewables. We were in the renewable age, and we left it because we liberated the hydrocarbon. If they actually think that this is about swapping out B for A, then you're absolutely right. I happen to believe, with 20-something years experience, very close experience with these people, that like Alinsky would preach, the issue isn't the issue. This is just an excuse. It's a vehicle. They're claiming that if we force this and make the stuff that works really expensive, you're greedy, you'll invent pixie dust or flubber or something. They don't think we can actually do this, but that's because they're opposed to abundance. It's not about the climate. Remember this. This is a good starting point. None of these schemes, for example, proposed in the name of climate change would, according to anyone, including them, actually have a detectable impact on the climate. That's the actual consensus. Nobody disputes it. They just don't sell it. But it's the truth, and I mean, because we all agree on it, there's no projected impact. To the extent projections of the future are the truth, what's true is we agree on this. Now, what they don't like is that we have so much energy. As one leading green out there in the Mountain West, in fact, Emery Levin said, it's like giving an idiot child a machine gun if you allow people to have abundant, reliable, affordable sources of energy. Some had said Maurice Strong, who I testified next to in the Senate in Foreign Relations Committee hearing, he said that wealth isn't the cure, it's the disease. And what do you think drives wealth and dragging people out of poverty and improving the human condition? Well, obviously it's access to reliable energy. So if anybody believes this is really as sold, it's about, well, we can just switch reliable energy for things that work sometimes. Well, obviously there's no deep thought involved there whatsoever. There's a lot of gullibility. But I think most of them understand it's just a sales pitch. They sell, what do you want, Armageddon or heaven? Raise your hands. And they say that it's a trade-off. In fact, it's not only cost-free, it'll benefit you. But none of that withstands a moment's scrutiny.
You know, Chris, I've said for a long time that the left in this country, all they want is a 7-letter word, control. And energy is the best way to control a populace. Would you agree with that?
Energy is. I've written that in several books. It is. When you control energy, you control an awful lot, including the populace. Richard Lindzen at MIT, who's gotten into the roots of this, as well as the theoretical physics, which are his expertise, has pointed that out many times. This is the best way for people who are statists to get their way. And if you think about it, look at all of when the wall fell and all of the Reds needed something to do. It's remarkable how many of them, as in almost all of them, immediately recast themselves as Greens. And if you look at what the Greens want, they tweeted yesterday. The Green Party in the UK said they don't just want to redistribute the world's wealth, they want to redistribute the vehicles for the world's wealth. Why are the Greens all about wealth redistribution? Because Red failed, both as a selling pitch, though it's coming back among the youth who have no idea what it really means, but it failed in reality, and so they said it's a different salvationism. This time it's environmental salvationism. And so control of energy is the way to go. If you look at their wish list, their list of demands, it's very similar to the list of demands they've had in response to everything. Every man as agent of doom crisis that rolls down the Autobahn or any other crisis. It's give us control, we're the experts, and we'll make better decisions for you. If you have these freedoms, you might exercise them.
Let me say this, and again, correct me if you think my statement is wrong, but I have been saying on my radio program for a long time that the pushing by the left of electric vehicles, EVs, is absolute insanity because our electrical grid, as it is right now, is pushed almost to the point of breaking. And with electric vehicles, it's going to go over the edge. And these people that buy these electric vehicles, it's the biggest waste of money that any consumer could ever lay out on the table. Do you agree or disagree?
It's certainly a curbside bauble for the wealthy, and no, you can't you need essentially the electricity we produce now to run the economy and move it over to provide automobility, meaning double it. But of course they have no intention of doubling it, and it's not even feasible, particularly given the regimes, assuming no new laws, as we're discussing Administrator Pruitt and what he's doing. You're talking about an awful lot of constraints that have already been put in place that you don't need to touch so long as you just keep putting it in the court's lap. So that's not going to happen, and I think they know it. The maths don't add up in any respect, whether you look at Elon Musk and his sourcing of batteries and the cells, or if you look at the grid overall. Their maths don't add up, and, of course, their stock values are the present value of expected future subsidies, not actual earnings.
Secretary Pruitt has said that it is right for this administration to say the war is over regarding the coal and the usage of coal in this country. But at the same time, you have very powerful groups, unfortunately, like the Sierra Club, that are going to fight tooth and nail to stop everything. What's going to happen here?
And they can, even if the courts weren't as they are, which is, we have to acknowledge, in many cases occupied by activists, and this is their way of changing policy, which obviously many of us don't agree with. The policy is to be enacted through the proper democratic process, which rejects this agenda. Even if the courts were very reliable in adhering to our Constitution, you would still have these groups able to delay things and therefore deny projects of almost any kind. And in fact, of course, ultimately they would delay the massive transmission additions and so on that you would require for their pinwheels and sun catchers. So again, under existing laws, even if you did nothing else, and even frankly, if the courts were more had a higher fidelity to the Constitution, you would see these groups able to slow things down. You can claim the war is over out of the executive branch, but to be quite honest with you, the swamp is real, and it's not going away, and it's not just careers, and it's not just Obama holdovers. It includes some people the president has brought in. And so it's not entirely true to say it's over, though it's certainly over out of the top of this EPA. He needs to get his bureaucrats in place to tell their bureaucrats what to do, and then get President Trump's judges in and try to at least even the score on this.
Do you think, Chris, with the announcing that this administration is in favor of the coal industry, that the climate change nuts are going to really start a full court press, more so than ever before, to stop coal in its tracks?
I'm sure that, look, like I said, they've got, under existing laws, they've got plenty of tools in their toolbox, and they have plenty of allies. I'm writing something right now that I hope you'll read about soon. We know from documents obtained in litigation from the State Department that the Republican establishment was with them on a lot of their dirty tricks, including Mr. Corker, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, who's in the news lately. His lawyer, in an email to the State Department, said this end run around the Senate for the Paris Climate Treaty showed disturbing contempt for their constitutional role. Oddly, you never heard a peep out of the chairman or the committee. Did he sit upon it, or did he squelch it? You've got a lot of the Republican establishment who like what he called the established order. And there was a lot of people, including former Republican Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson. There are a lot of the New York-Washington corridor who are invested in ensuring this gravy train, taking from your listeners and giving to them, continues. So it's the green groups, it's the courts, it's the swamp, it's the Republican establishment, it's a lot of Wall Street. We've got a lot of battles to fight. But I think we saw something remarkable last November, and that is that the people can make a huge difference, and in a very surprising way, when the media, nobody sees it coming. They can stand up and say, no, we've had enough of this. We are going to impose a restraining order on you. Now we've got to make sure that restraining order is enforced.
You know, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I'm very, very worried about what's going to happen in 2018 with the midterms, and then also again coming up in 2020. I hope and pray that the policies that are maybe going to be re-implemented for the benefit of the American citizen, you and me, the common man, are going to be in place and stay in place. But I'm really afraid of what the left is going to do and how they're going to try to overturn this.
Yeah, the war on coal is not over. The war on affordable, abundant, reliable energy is not over. The effort to cause seniors and the poor to have their prices for something we all pay for necessarily skyrocket is not over. It's more the end of the beginning than the beginning of the end in any way. So 2016 didn't resolve everything, and I think the past few weeks' news has reaffirmed that.
Energy and Environmental Legal Institute, Chris Horner. Chris, you're always welcome on this program. You do a great job. God bless, and please come back soon.
Thank you very much, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. I agree with him. Absolutely agree with him that the war is not over. As a matter of fact, it's just beginning. But that leads me back to what we've already talked about this morning with Dr. Alvin Schmidt about evil in the world. And now here with Chris Horner with the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute. You know, the ball's in our court. The ball is in our court. Are we going to sit there and just watch it bounce until it stops bouncing? Or are we going to continue to dribble that ball and make it bounce? You and me, everybody. And I hate people that sit there and go, well, why don't you do something? I remember a caller that called me on the air about a year ago and said, well, Zeb, why don't you go talk to so-and-so? Or, Zeb, why don't you go do this? And I got so mad, I almost wanted to throw something at the camera here because I thought, it's always great to pass it off to somebody else. Why don't you go do it yourself? Why don't you get involved? Instead of saying to somebody else, well, why don't you go talk to them, Zeb? Get off your butt and get involved and do things yourself. Right now, we're going to have a weather forecast. It just infuriates me when somebody says, well, why don't you go do this? Or why don't you go do that? Help. Do things for yourself. Scarro's Meats brings us the weather. 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. Or you can go to their website, scarrosmeats.com. I'm talking delicious meats. I've got lists and lists of all the things that they do, and they've got smokehouse meats and hams and bacons and sausages and brats. Oh, it's all delicious. All delicious. Don't forget Scarro's Meats over in Jerome. And right now, here's the weather.
Here's your weather forecast as we saddle up and ride again for this Tuesday. Today is going to be the nicest day that we have as we move through the work week. Sunny skies is what we're looking at, slightly breezy. High of 63 tonight, clear skies, low of 37 tomorrow. The winds are definitely going to be picking up, and we're looking at a high of 57 under mostly sunny skies. Tomorrow night, clear with a low of 31. Tomorrow, going to be a lot cooler. However, still, we're going to see some sunshine, high of 49 with an overnight low of 31 for Friday as we kick off the weekend. 20% chance of rain showers are in the forecast, only a high of 46. That's your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you, Gina. And, of course, brought to you by Scarro's Meats. Don Scarrow and the rest of the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657, and it is true. They're changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Scarro's Meats. No, that's something that really irritates me, and I think most all of you will agree with me that as a society, things are the way they are because none of us has really done or put forth the effort to stop the negativity, stop the evil, and thwart it. Stop it. It's so easy to always say to somebody else, well, why don't you do something? Well, listen. Why don't we link arms and do it together? It's much more powerful. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. When I think about all these groups, these environmental groups, that basically are getting a free ride. They're getting a free ride on the taxpayer dollars. And they're dictating to you and I what we can do, where we can go, or what we can use. That really bothers me. And that's why I'm going to keep fighting on this program as long as I can. I'm an old man. And I'd like to retire, but, I guess I got a wish list. And part of my wish list is I hope I can continue to be a real big thorn under the saddle pad of these people like the environmental groups and the anti-don't go there, don't use groups. I wish that you would join me. And a unified voice, we could shut them up. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. While I'm waiting for your call that I just know is coming in, I want to talk to you about our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. We're doing the right thing matters. The greatest in service, the best in tires, brake service, front-end alignments, shocks and struts, batteries. There, you know all about them. They're the best. And they've got the best of people. These are hard-working, serving people that want to make sure you drive safely. Right now, they're having a big fall tire sale. So, all you have to do is just go down there and get the tires you need for safe driving. And like I said, many of which are on sale right now. Stop in at any one of the 7 locations. Lane in Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. Yup, they're the best. Your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. You stop in and see them today. Excuse me, I got time for one quick call. Come on, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I was just checking down my list last night. I did not get a chance to see the opening last night of the Viking and Bear game. I did not get a chance to see if any of those prima donna athletes were kneeling or sitting during the national anthem. But like I said earlier, the best way to approach this problem and solve it once and for all, the NFL gets huge tax breaks, which means our money. And there are congressmen right now, one from Florida in particular, that's looking at this situation. And this might be the impetus to get these overpaid, underworked athletes to stand up for our national anthem and show respect to this great country. I hope so. I'm sick and tired of this situation. Tomorrow on the program, what have we got cooking? Well, we know that Deanne has been working with schedule changes of some of the guests that we have coming on tomorrow, and I think we're going to have Dr. Herb London. I think we're going to have Brian Maloney, and I know we're going to have Dave Bigo, and we'll determine the rest of the program after I get off the air today. But we've got some real heavy hitters coming on the show tomorrow morning. Wheels, it is good to have you back. I want you to know that Deanna and I prayed for your health and hope that all goes well for you. You're a part of the family, and stay healthy over there, my dear friend.
I had to put my headsets on real quick, but...
You always should wear your headsets during the program.
You know, sometimes, I'll be honest, my ears get kind of sweaty.
Well, I don't care about your ears. I wear mine for 3 hours every day. You wear your headsets over there. Or what we're going to do is come over with some Elmer's glue and glue them to the side of your head.
Ooh, that's interesting. I'm glad that back in preschool I didn't end up eating the glue.
Okay, well, I've got a full bottle, so you wear your headsets, and it's good to have you back. Take care of yourself.
Will do.
All right.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to wrap it up for today and say we'll be back tomorrow morning at 8:06. And we always say on Zeb at the Ranch, where, of course, the way things were are the way things ought to be. God bless you and your family. See you tomorrow morning at 8:06.